Welcome to NZ World News to all the listeners. Today we are having a special guest and a multi-talented, facet. She may not be a familiar name, but actually she is a great name in the politics, in the world of politics of New Zealand. I think she has been here in the country for 20 odd years, probably more than that.
Yes.
And so we are going to have a great conversation today with Susanna Kruger, who is going to tell us a little bit about herself and her journey of her profile and all that. But we're going to today discuss with her expertise and skills that she has brought into the country and she's also an inspiration to many, many people. So we're going to have a great conversation with her on various topics and to see what's her visions, what's her goals are for various future proofing of our country on called Aotearoa, New Zealand. So over to Suzanne. Tell us something about you.
Yeah, look, yes, of course, I'm from Namibia, so Southwest Africa, 20 years ago. And I grew up actually on a 10,000 hectare cattle and goat farm on the western edge of Africa's Kalahari Desert. And yes, there I worked as a government consultant when Namibia got its independence from South Africa. And so I played a key role in public service reform from the old to the new independent administration. But yeah, then I came to New Zealand 10 years later. Yes, the country of milk and honey.
So you're basically a very good, you know the ins and outs and a very good astute governance, I should say. You can see like a transformative governance, we can call it that way.
Yeah, so because the thing is, I've always worked in policy development and now in New Zealand, you know, legal and business consultancy. And as a politician, you are basically a lawmaker. So it is all about policy making and lawmaking, yes.
And that is one of the key ingredients of future proofing, isn't it? For many, many aspects and everything really what we do when you make a policy.
In New Zealand becoming more and more multicultural, of course, you know, laws, policies, a lot of things have to change actually over time to accommodate a multicultural nation. Yeah, no, that's great. So you definitely have got a good governance, good policy making. So and you have seen lots of policies rolled around, and particularly during this COVID-19, some new changes have come, new policies they have adopted probably and would like to adopt in the future. So I'm going to jump into a lot of topics that we are going to cover today. So let's start with your vision and with what policies and what controls really you see should happen or think in your view should happen with this whole COVID-19 scenario that we are having at the moment in our hands. So the first topic I would like to cover is the human rights. Now, human rights is a vast topic in your legal terms and in your but there are people, there are kids, there are age-old, there are middle-aged, there are business people, and they are all humans. And the rights are on different aspects and facets of these humans. How do you see that that people would be able to exercise their rights and will be entitled for their rights, that we could have a future proofing or policies around that and looking after these areas of humans and different facets of humans? What do you think should really happen with any government really who comes? Look, the thing is with human rights, I always say it's kind of like the ultimate purpose of humanity is Mm.
kind of that we want to be all having freedom. Freedom
Yes.
is not only my own
Mhm.
personal value, but it is the value of communities, the value of families, the value of a
Mm.
nation.
Yeah.
And so that's where you are constantly in conflict with what is human rights and what is human choice, and giving
Mm.
you that freedom. And
Mhm.
of course, the whole purpose of law is actually to restrict that freedom
Mm.
that you may inherently have as a human being.
Yeah.
So, and especially in New Zealand, where we live in quite a country that is quite feminist, that is
Mhm.
world leaders in feminism. If I can use that as one example, then the problem we're facing is, on the one hand, giving people a freedom of choice as
Mm.
to what sort of lifestyle or sexuality or whatever, however they want to live.
Mm.
But then we also face at the same time, if
Mm.
those freedoms become an attack on what others see as normal and as their choice and their freedom, you know. So it is
Mm.
that constant balance about being inclusive and giving people rights,
Choices.
but in
Mm.
such a way that it
Mm.
does not come an attack on other
Mm.
people's human rights.
Yeah. So what you are saying definitely is like more bringing, giving the freedom, but also giving them choices, but with positive in mind that the communities, they are engaged with the communities, and they're looking after the community as a whole as well, and not just individual choice or individual freedom, but that can be looked after by the whole community. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I
Complete.
think what's happening at the moment with a lot of the laws, the acts that we're getting in New Zealand,
Mm.
they came in order or in place as a result of a lot of strong lobby groups.
Sure.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, which is not necessarily the right way, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because it depends on how much money you have, and
Mm-hmm.
which are the powerful people that you've got behind you in order to get those acts and those things in place. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not really necessarily the voice of the society. And especially
Right.
in the multicultural society that we live in, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing that our parliament to a large extent is
Mm.
dominated by two cultures, uh,
Right.
the laws that we have in place at the moment is actually the laws of those two cultures instead
Mm.
of the laws of
Right.
the society, which is multicultural.
Mm. Right.
And
Right.
I've just seen, as a migrant, I've seen that a lot of migrants
Mm.
have more similar, even though we come from different parts of the world, we actually have more similar values and things that we want compared
Mm-hmm.
to uh, the people of the two dominant cultures, which is referred to as Pākehā and Maori.
Right. Right. So yeah, you think there is a still like a big gap in terms of the policies and the rules that are there around human rights, and particularly after COVID-19, do you think there should be any changes in the protection of the human rights of various kinds?
Look, as a result of COVID-19, of course, this whole thing of whether to
Mm.
vaccinate or not vaccinate,
Yeah. Mm.
whether to lock down and not lock down, and those things
Mm.
have come to the forefront.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
my opinion on that is, personally, I'm quite glad that we were kept safe. uh,
Mhm.
through these lockdowns and so on. Although, yes, it has come at a huge financial cost
Yes, yes.
that we feel very much as individuals and
Mm,
as family members.
mm,
Um, so, yes, the question is, to what extent was that
mm,
lockdown forced upon us,
mm.
as to yeah, whether that was really correct. And then going forward, to what extent
Mm.
is it okay for us to be forced to have vaccinations forced upon us?
Right.
Now, once again, if I look at vaccinations, you know, uh, personally, I believe that yes, we should have the choice of living healthy and
Mm,
natural health and that sort of thing. But
yeah.
then at the same time,
Mm,
if you look at people lobbying for no vaccination, then it doesn't seem to be very healthy people necessarily.
yeah.
So what is the government doing then? To what extent? Uh, yeah, because so what I'm saying is that you can't really have people that are living unhealthy lifestyles for whatever reasons. I'm not judging, but say you live on McDonald's all the time.
Mm,
And now you say, okay, but you don't want to be vaccinated. Whose problem does it become in the end if there is then a total pandemic? So, like with COVID-19 or so on, if you live a
yeah.
very healthy lifestyle, of course, you can give more choice. So what I'm saying is that um,
Mm.
just as money give you choices,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
a natural, healthy lifestyle gives you choices. So
Sure.
choice, the freedom of choice actually do go hand in hand with
Right.
the resources available.
Sure.
If the
Yeah.
resources aren't there, you have
Mm.
less choices.
So do you think like as you have combined this with quite human rights and the health that we are having for human and the protection of human health as this current government also is bent on like supporting more or putting more focus on the health of the humans as
Yeah,
compared to what the rights. But human rights is what again is conflict with this human protection of health, that
yeah,
they don't have much freedom or they don't have much choices because of this COVID-19 situation. But however, we are following certain guidelines of overseas or international, and which you have been also a big part of that governance and policy making for your previous role. What do you see like this is going hand in hand with health and the human rights? Do you think that there is needs to be lots of needs to be twigged and changed in terms of moving forward process that we have currently?
yeah. I do believe that laws and
Mm,
policies need to be constantly changed. They can't wait like
right.
40 years before there's
True.
any
I
change
agree with you
happening.
100%. Yeah.
It's got to happen constantly. That is for sure. But what I'm always telling people on individual level
Mm,
is that um, the change that you want out there, you actually have to live in your individual life
mm-hmm.
every day as far
Yeah.
as possible. So you can't ask for um, freedoms if you
Mm,
don't provide the platform in your own personal life for
mm,
those freedoms. That is where I think it is often
mm. Yeah.
conflicting between
Conflict. Yeah. Yeah. I get
yeah,
that. Yeah. You're right.
yeah.
You're right. Mm, mm. No, that's
So
great.
the personal. So what I'm saying is there's a huge personal responsibility
Mm,
to to show, yeah, to show a proper lifestyle upon
Mm,
which those freedoms can be given. You know,
mm,
yes, of course, inherently you have to have the freedom, but it's like a
mm,
child. If a child doesn't show you that they can be disciplined, then you can't just
mm.
give them freedoms. You have to give them less freedoms until they can show that. And that is
Yes.
what I believe, even on adult level, that is the
Mm,
situation that a government faces
yes.
when people start, say, for instance, protesting for human rights, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time not living that responsibility
Yes.
of being
Yes.
able to make their choices.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, that's great. No, that's good. Good to know that from you. And so thank you so much, Susan, once again for that great insight. Now we are going to go to our next topic, the child poverty. So the child poverty, as we have seen with the COVID-19, the recent development with recent research and reports that came along, and we saw lots of kids have gone under child poverty, which there is a crisis. Do you think this should be considered as a national crisis, just like pandemic? And because these are our future, we are talking about the kids of today who are born
Mm.
today, this generation and the coming generation. And if kids are more into child poverty situation or underprivileged, and because of COVID-19, they have gone more hand to mouth kind of situation.
Mm.
Do you think this should be considered now or declared as a national crisis, just like COVID-19? What's your view on it? And how do you future-proof this issue that we are having for, at least we have got an acknowledgement now, but how do you future-proof it now? And what's your take on it?
Yeah, look, as a result of COVID-19 and the lockdowns and more people having lost their jobs, of course, this is now probably, yes, the time to declare it a national
Mm,
pandemic emergency. But the thing is, for me, um, New Zealand, what I've discovered in New Zealand and working in the family court and that sort of area a
mm,
lot is that what I've discovered is
mm.
that the children here are actually a lot almost state owned. You know,
Yes.
as long as you live under a roof and everything is quiet and everything is going well,
Mm-hmm.
then no one is going to interfere. But the moment you need help or there is something wrong in the family where you actually need help and advice, then the authorities, and this is where I do put the blame on the
Mm-hmm.
government and the system,
Mm-hmm.
is that the system actually has taken away
Mm-hmm.
accountability and responsibility from parents
Mm-hmm.
for the children.
Mm.
And then at the same time, all they can actually really offer the children is sandwiches or 2-minute noodles, you
Mm.
know.
Mm.
So what's the
Yeah.
point in taking children,
Mm.
and I'm not meaning physically taken necessarily by, Oranga Tamariki or that. I'm talking just the huge emphasis by all the rights that they give children at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
They take more and more responsibility away from the parents
Mm.
and giving it more and more to the child. And if it doesn't go well, to then the authorities take over. So what I'm saying is that the system is creating the child poverty. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
as a result of COVID-19, but it is through children having almost more rights than parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is making the parents stand back. Some
Mm.
parents I've seen, they take their money for themselves, they dump the children on the government
Mm.
and
Mm.
live a lifestyle. The government sits with the problem, and because the problem is so big, the
Mm.
government can't do it properly.
Mm.
And who suffers? The children.
Sure.
So I
So,
believe that the problem is created
So the
by the
system is
system.
not right in your view. The system is
Yeah,
creating the child poverty rather than the
yeah,
behavior of the parents.
yeah.
Is it?
And I think it comes from two liberal views. I think
Two liberal views. Okay.
because New Zealand has got so many uh, very far left, if you can call it that way, liberal views, or what
Mm-hmm.
they call the modern family values. The
Mm-hmm.
modern family values is so strong
Mm.
that it has broken the power of the traditional family where mom and dad takes care of the children.
Mm. Mm. I mean, yeah, I do
And
remember good old days was quite different to what it is today. And you are
yeah,
right in saying that modern family, we call just like we call it globalization. And then under the name of
yeah,
globalization, we abuse. And then
yeah,
same thing under the name of modernization, probably some people abuse, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly what you are trying to imply here, which
yeah,
is I kind of tend to understand the views. Because good old days, parents had a lot of control. They kept the kids under their very much disciplined and well behaved and also educated in that regard
mhm,
and respect. But that respect and that education and is has to the lifestyle experience or the lifestyle education is not there anymore,
yeah,
basically. Mm.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
get that. I do tend to agree some sort in that. Like I do think that lifestyle experiences, lifestyle education needs to be put back into the schools at an early
yeah,
age
yeah,
so that they understand how to live in a society, how to respect in a society, and how to respect each other. But also that's one part. But in terms of what you're saying, child poverty is driven by the system where
mm,
the control has gone towards the whole system. The government is controlling the whole thing. Is that what you're
yeah,
trying to say? Correct? So
yeah.
what do you think needs to happen immediately? Because this is going worse. This is getting worse, right? That's what we came to
Mhm.
know, that it's getting worse in terms of the child poverty figures that are coming up.
Yeah, it comes back to a matter of law reform, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because the thing is, at the moment, if I just look at the laws pertaining to the family law,
Mm.
uh, it's also not only what is written in the law, but how it is practiced.
Yeah, how it
And
is implemented. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
how it is implemented. And
Mm.
because it is implemented under this umbrella of modern feminist
Mm.
ideology,
Mm-hmm.
it, um,
Mm.
yeah, there's no, that is really what needs to change. It needs to
Right.
change so that we say at
Mm-hmm.
the very least, we need to be able to say, okay, there's for a family, a modern family, and there's a traditional family.
Mm.
Okay, if
Mm-hmm.
you are a modern family, you can choose that way. If
Mm.
you're a traditional family, you can choose that way, or we will help you make it possible that way.
Mm.
But at the moment, it doesn't work that way, really. It
Mm.
works that we all have to be modern family.
Mm.
You can
Right.
only be traditional family if you do it quietly under your roof and no one knows.
Mm. Right.
But
Right.
the moment there is that you need help, then you have to become modern family.
Yes.
Then all
Yes.
the principles, all the ways, all the
Mm-hmm.
advice that's given to you
Mm.
um, is given as it's a modern family situation. To give a practical example for you,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, if you can now be a traditional family
Mm-hmm.
uh, and say you've got 6 properties,
Mm-hmm.
but now suddenly, because if you now decide to divorce,
Mm.
suddenly because modern family values is implied,
Mm.
is practiced,
Mm.
you have to now, one person will now go and live on the social welfare with
Mm.
the
Mm.
children, and the
Mm.
other one will sit with the 6 properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, until for years and
For
years.
years. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I
it
100%
won't.
agree. Mm,
It won't be said, okay, you have 6 properties, so give 1 property
mm,
for the children
mm,
and whoever, you know, the mother or the one who has day-to-day care. It says,
yeah.
no, you take the 6 properties
Mm,
and the system, the authorities, the government will now look after the rest.
yes, yes, yes. No, I totally
That
get that.
immediately you've created a poverty. Immediately
Mm,
you've created. Because by
that's a
the
great
time
example.
that 6
Mm,
properties have been sorted, the family has lost so much
mm.
that they can't make up that loss again. They just can't.
And they just go downhill. They just
Yeah,
cannot
they
come
just
up.
go downhill. Yeah, yeah.
One person just
Because
goes
now
downhill.
Yeah,
Mm,
because now it's not only they say in the family court, say you go now to charity, you go to WINS, you go to
mm,
church, you go to
mm,
work. Everywhere you
mhm,
go is, for
mhm,
instance, now say, okay, so what do you do? Oh no, I'm on social welfare. Immediately
mm,
you're not taken seriously.
mm.
Okay? For instance, in a
Yeah.
job, in a proper job. I'm not talking about low skill job.
Mm,
You go to wherever you do, you know, it's just one disadvantage on the other, on the other, on the other. It will take you at least 10 years
mm.
if you are very strong to try and get out of that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
No, I totally,
created there
totally,
overnight.
I totally agree with that view, which is definitely a good insight of how child poverty is created by the system, how child
Yeah,
poverty is created by certain laws and certain policies that are in place. It's not getting better. And I think it's high time those good old laws 40 years, 50 years, 80 years back
yeah,
needs to be changed. It's
yeah,
definitely, I 100% agree on that because I've seen firsthand people and colleagues like that who have gone downhill just with one separation or just with one disagreement, and they are just lost
yeah,
everything. And so
yeah,
it's not a good way of living when it comes to humans and when it comes to humanity, when it comes to
yeah,
the lawmaking and when it comes to the child poverty. And particularly the kids have got no whatsoever fault of theirs, and they are deprived automatically. They are
yeah,
deprived of their luxuries or comforts. Forget about luxuries.
yeah.
They are deprived about their comfort. So I get
Mm.
that, Susan. It's really, really good point that you made here because I have seen myself as well in that area. And I always question myself, like why and when this law is going to get changed. Like why is
Yeah.
it still existing? So
Yeah.
definitely, I definitely accept what you're saying. It's great.
Because I
Thank
can,
you.
I can also just briefly give you another example. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because the government, because we have the system that when someone is fostering a child,
Mm-hmm.
even if there's the grandchild, then they get money from the government.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
what's happening, what I have seen is that grandparents will come and take the
Mm.
they will say to the
They will.
young mum, for instance, they'll
Mm.
say to the young mum, oh, okay, let us help you a little bit. You know, you're young, you this, you that. They take the child, and then once the child is with them a little bit, then they apply to court and they say, and or go to WINS, and then they start caring for this child.
Mm.
Now that child becomes, for them, it's a second income. So they
Sure.
get now income for looking
Mm.
after that child.
Mm.
But
Mm.
that child is made poor, number one, by
Mm.
not being raised by the parents.
That's so true.
Even if it is a solo parent,
Mm.
you know, so that child now develops more and more social problems.
Mm. Mm.
That becomes the government's problem,
Mm. Because
you
there is
see?
no kind of pastor care or there is no caring for the kids anymore. It's like
Yeah,
treated as a
yeah.
as another tool. I
Yeah,
get that.
because like fostering a child in New Zealand is like it's a business, it's a career.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, that is, it's a career. Also, the agency running it, I mean, they are a business.
mm, mm. No, I
So
do
that
accept
is
that
where child
to a large
poverty is
extent.
created.
Mm. So
It's where
there
it's
are some
created.
fundamental, you have raised some fundamental points that child poverty is not about just like parents cannot afford, or there are single parents,
Yeah,
or parents are not working enough or not getting income enough. But also there are lots of major systematic failures, or the system that is there is not really working, and we have been too complacent to just
yeah,
continue with this system rather
yeah,
than
yeah,
having a hard look at it and change it, you know,
yeah,
to
yeah.
some of the
Yeah,
things.
I
Mm.
mean, I'm really of the opinion. I've seen it over and over and over. So my opinion is that
Mm.
a big part of child poverty is created by the system.
Thank you. That's great. Absolutely wonderful, Susanna. I was not expecting that the system would be a big part of it or a big contributing part of it. So it is
Mm,
really, really good insight that you have given. I wish that any government who comes in really would look into this hardly and with a very hard eye and think about it like this is not just handing out or giving money is going to solve the problem, but you have to solve it from the system point of view,
yeah,
which will
yeah,
eliminate
yeah.
quite a bit. Okay, that's good. Susanna, thank you so much. Now, you got another screen as well on top of it. Is it? There are two screens on your.
Is it? No, I have only one screen that I know of,
There's on top.
unless it's the laptop screen that somehow shows.
Okay, okay. Laptop screen, but there is a screen like you, but still picture of you, and then
Well,
behind.
it's my banner at the back. It's my banner.
Okay, no, but there is another screen with a
Well,
still picture,
well, okay,
but that's okay. We'll manage that.
okay.
Let's go back to the my favorite and your loving topic, because you stand for, your party stands for what you are standing for. Tea Party, which is the taxpayers, um, what is that? Taxpayer
Taxpayers Entrepreneurs Alliance.
Entrepreneurs Alliances, yes. And this is the small, we're going to be talking about business, like small to medium entrepreneurs, SMEs and
Yeah.
self-employed and people who wants to get into business and even larger businesses. So we are going to talk about businesses. So now that we are into a pandemic health crisis, but then that health crisis contributed towards the economic crisis. And
Mm,
the economic crisis is going to be here for a long time, just like the health crisis is uncertain. Economic crisis is going to make it's like a complementing each other or a conflicting each other. It's, I would call it a
mm,
complementing, so it's a contributing for both. So
mm,
if the economy is not getting well, health is not going to get well. And same
mm,
as if
mm.
health is not going to get well, economy is not going to get well. So it's my favorite subject,
Yeah.
and I love, I, I'm into the helping and supporting of small business, and I love your vision, what your party stands for, which is great initiative that you stand for. So tell me something about this SMEs. How are we going to, this is a crisis, and this is not just a small or a particular one crisis, but it's overall the nation crisis. It's a country
Mm,
crisis. And we are going to really see this for a long time, I believe, unless and until we put some great policies, great processes, great platforms for people to develop and self-development, we are not going to come out of it so fast. So tell, take me to this journey of your own experience, of your own business and of your own governance, that you have been in this. What do you really think in terms of businesses, whether it's infrastructure investment or whether it is people investment or whether it is any training and retraining kind of projects that they have put in? What is your vision? How do we come out of this crisis, this
mm.
that we have
contributed because of the pandemic?
Yeah, look, yes, I've been self-employed all the
Hmm.
time
That's why.
because I could never really get a job in New Zealand, so I've had to be self-employed.
You have to, yeah. That's so
Yeah,
true. It's like a story of my life.
yeah,
You
yeah,
never get a job, then you have to do on your own.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, but the thing is, yes, we will seriously have to create jobs. It doesn't help just putting on posters, on billboards and say more jobs. You have to say how you're going to do that.
Hmm.
And uh, I really think I've said it for many years that we have to not just think corporately in terms of jobs. We have
Mhm.
to really think the small. And I've actually created a new term called micro businesses.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I really believe now after COVID-19, that is even more the right
Relevant.
time to bring in this new category of micro businesses. I
Micro
will talk
business.
about the others soon, but what's
Mm.
happened now as a result of COVID-19, many people have lost their jobs
Mm.
and are landed on social welfare.
Mm.
Now, we do have through the government the flexi wage working towards self-employment scheme. And instead of just saying to people, okay, sit there and now you're going to be on job seeker benefit
Mm.
and you're going to apply now for all sorts of laborer or whatever jobs,
Mm.
we should really put more money into that flexi wage scheme
Mm.
and help people towards self-employment.
Sure.
Because most people have a hobby or they've got transferable skills that
Mm-hmm.
can be changed that they did use in a job somewhere,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
that they can now rechannel, transfer, and make into a business.
Right.
And that is really what I believe
Mm.
is needed to take us out of this
Mm.
COVID-19 economic crisis. And what's good about that, it is a grassroots approach.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because I doubted whether we are just going to do it and be able to get out of this crisis just in a normal, um, old-fashioned corporate employment type of situation.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, so, yes, through micro business development, through the WINS flexi wage scheme,
Mm-hmm.
until people can get off social welfare, through self-employment. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is we really have to bring manufacturing back to New Zealand,
Absolutely. Can't agree
creating
more than
jobs.
that.
Yeah,
100% well
because
said.
yeah,
Mm.
we've seen now with COVID-19, I
Mm.
mean, what if it was really bad and we
Yes.
couldn't get stuff from overseas? So
Exactly.
we really need to become
Mm.
self-sufficient. We have
Mm.
to create jobs here
Mm.
through
Mm.
manufacturing, and
Yeah.
we can do it in areas outside Auckland, more
Yes.
rural areas where
Regions.
housing is
Yeah.
more
Mm.
affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Together with that, industrial training, professional training for
Mm.
people, just transferring skills.
Yeah.
Once again, people already have a lot of skills and a lot of passion. It is
Mm.
just transferring that into a new career, a new direction.
Mm.
And as a party that is immigrant friendly,
Mm-hmm.
that also ties in with our immigration policy, actually, where we stand for what we will do is to encourage the like a project-based business visa
Mm. Mm.
for migrants to come in and invest here, say 2 million, a
Mm.
business of $2 million,
Mm.
and a commitment to employ local people for,
Mm.
say, 3 years and things like that.
Mm.
So that's all job creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the time, of course, so far the government has always just looked at private sector to create the
Mm-hmm.
jobs. but we really have to change laws, change policy, bring in these policies in order for these government enhanced job creation initiatives to be able to take place.
So what you are really saying is a fantastic approach, which probably many years ago, New Zealand was into some sort of manufacturing mode, but all of a sudden for last decades, few decades, this has completely gone. And really what you are suggesting is we need to bring back that values, and we have to create for our own self-sufficient and not reliant on more overseas. So, and plus employment will be created automatically, and plus it will be more for our own people and own good as a nation, self-consumption. So that really, I really can't agree more than that. It's absolutely spot on what you said. I also felt that manufacturing needs to come back, and also particularly for like basic things like uniforms, school uniforms. Now they need to be manufactured here in New Zealand. Why can't we have to import? And it's ridiculous. And same as lots of homegrown and lots of other things can be manufactured. Otherwise, we are selling our wood, and then the manufacturing product is coming back to New Zealand. So it's bizarre that we are buying our own wood at a very high cost because it is now full-fledged product and it comes to us back. But the wood is used of our own wood. So manufactured in Vietnam or any other country and then comes back here. For us to buy, which is ridiculous. We can buy, we can make here our own. So no, I 100% agree.
Yeah, I understand why it's happened, because it happened under this huge drive for globalization.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
And because the world is more connected, it was very possible to do that. You know, but I think we've realized that you know, it's like also when you look at the family unit, if we don't have strong family units, then we will find it difficult to be strong as a nation. The same with that. If we don't bring manufacturing back so that we have strong communities across the country, then we can't be that strong a nation economically, and we can't survive disease, death, and disaster, which is what a pandemic is all about.
Which is pandemic is all about. I agree 100%. I mean, yeah, just touching on that, it's a great two initiatives that you said. In fact, it was brilliant on both the occasions, like what you said, manufacturing and then self-consumption and then self-employment created. And we could create a lot of opportunities for our own people with our own government taking initiatives and changing, training, retraining, whatever. But in terms of existing scenarios for small businesses to come out of this, you know, what I have seen, and in my view, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the existing cost of commercial rent or commercial lease, that the businesses are facing the hardship because of that. Because prior to COVID-19, they were complacent to pay that because everything was open, the people were still, there was a flow, but now the flow has stopped and the flow is uncertain, but the cost is same. Now the government is helping for the businesses and supporting businesses, but that help and support goes to the existing cost. And so there is no change in the development of the businesses or any economic growth for the businesses. It is just handing over money through the government, through those commercial lease and commercial rent. Do you think it's time that needs to be looked at and changed, just what you suggested? There should be some sort of policies, some sort of control that needs to be changed with the existing costs that the businesses can't afford.
Yeah, the thing is, I can't see how we can really help businesses long term and get out of this economic crisis without some tax cuts or tax breaks.
Well, tax breaks
by,
is one thing, I agree with you, but then the existing cost, which any business, when you
yeah,
start a business, there are certain fixed costs and variable costs. And the
yeah,
fixed
yeah,
cost is not going to change. No, if the fixed
yeah,
cost is not going to change, no matter how
yeah,
much you try to develop the other cosmetics, they may
mm,
not be
mm,
affording. And even if they can afford, it will be just passing from one person to another person.
to
So the
another, yeah.
middleman. So I'm just trying to say from your point of view and your perspective, do you think really that cost, what we were too complacent, people want to do business online, digital, everything. So obviously the cost of lease they want, but then they will be in a big shit if a lot of
Mm,
businesses will go, a lot of property owners and landlords will be forced to sell their property or,
mm,
you know, but in doing that, there could be a midway where rather than selling, they could help the businesses at an affordable cost or at a
mm,
cost that can be agreeable for a longer term of
yeah,
lease. Do you think
yeah.
there should be some sort of change in that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there should be a committee that is specifically doing the negotiations and that
Hmm.
to balance it so that landlords can still get their money and survive, but at the same time also giving, uh, help to the businesses
Hmm.
uh, to make that possible. Uh,
Yeah.
because otherwise, if I've seen over the last since the COVID-19 thing,
Hmm.
just businesses that has gone under and now kind of selling for like $1.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know but then the
Exactly.
problem is you can now buy the business for $1, but you have to afford that high lease.
Cost, high lease. Exactly.
It is incredible. And so,
I know.
and then the landlord doesn't want to give in and come down on the price of the lease
Exactly.
because they
Mm.
have certain commitments.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, so I would certainly say that we need a, an, a committee, a agency that specifically try to
Look
balance
into this.
those things, look into that because it has to change. Because yeah, like
Mm.
I say, you can buy a business for $1, but you still can't afford the lease.
Absolutely well said. Yeah, because that's what I was also thinking in my mind. Like, okay, I can buy a business for a 50 cents or a free, but it comes up with all the liabilities that are fixed.
Yeah,
How do I
yeah,
pay that? Do I pay
yeah,
from the government and then pay back to them? It makes no sense. My development is zero over there.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so, no, I 100% agree. There has to be some sort of committee, some sort of agencies to be working on this issue and then trying to minimize or mitigate or negotiate or
yeah,
renegotiate some sort of
yeah,
deals so that you
yeah.
don't kill the everyone. You just,
Mm,
have a smooth transition, I believe. And that
yeah,
because we don't know, we are in an uncertainty world of business, and small businesses who want to move from physical appearance to online or to digital, they can very well move it, but then
mm,
those leads will be again empty because
yeah,
if everyone moves to digital, a part of
yeah,
majority of, then again they will be into problem and then they can create more issues. So
yeah. And I do see more and more buildings getting empty and
hmm,
businesses is empty. So yeah, it's actually
hmm,
it needs immediate attention. Otherwise, it
yeah,
can get in totally out of hand. That you will get
that's what
suburbs
I
or
thought.
areas or
Hmm,
villages where it goes dead. You
hmm,
know?
hmm, hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's true. So there has to be a good transformation in that area.
yeah. Yeah,
For
but it should have been already put in place because uh,
mm,
by the time the evidence is there everywhere, it's going to be too
mm,
late.
mm.
Yeah,
What do you think about your view? I wanted to check with the businesses, but we are getting, the government is giving the bank loans. Instead of bank loans, we are getting loans from government. The businesses are getting loans.
yeah.
In your world or in your vision, do you think it's high time we should create our own bank, which is Kiwi Bank we already have, and should
Mm.
we put everything through that channel? And rather than depending on the overseas bank, the Kiwi Bank could easily operate. Don't you think
Yeah,
so?
look, I've always been in favor of our own banking system and getting
Mm,
away with, or having options at least,
mm,
not to have to use
correct.
the
At least options. Yeah.
overseas banks and so on.
Mm,
So yeah, but then unfortunately, I mean, even with Kiwi Bank, they have become more and more like
mm.
the overseas banks.
True.
So the other option is the credit union
Mm,
banks, which is then, around shareholder or these cooperative banks. What's the other one? Something with a T, TSB.
TSB.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, those type of banks. Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, but then, like, when are we going to create our own bank? That's a big question. New Zealand, we do have a Kiwi Bank for many years,
yeah.
and we haven't developed to the way we wanted. I believe we are the only country in the world who doesn't have their own bank nationalized.
Yeah.
All our funds of government are put into overseas banks, which
Yeah.
is Westpac. All government
Look.
accounts, all our migrant accounts in ANZ. And I just fail to understand why
Mm,
can't we have our own Kiwi Bank built
mm,
on that national assets? We could create easily that wealth. All the
yeah.
properties are owned by foreign banks. Why can't Kiwi Bank own that
Yeah.
properties? So the wealth remains with us within our country, and we can
Mm.
utilize that wealth for our own country's people. Isn't it high time?
Yeah, look, I've invested the last 10 years of my life a lot into working with Maori and
Hmm.
learning actually all the philosophies and ways of doing things and so on. And of course, for them, it is a huge aim is to
Mm.
have a New Zealand bank.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, that, I mean,
I mean, you
I
are a
have
great
now
business
this,
advocator and you are all about advocating businesses. So I put this point to you, and you could be a good advocate for this in terms
yeah,
of the banking system that we are having currently should be owned by our own state owned bank.
yeah, yeah,
It's high time.
absolutely,
Every
absolutely,
country
yeah,
has got their own state-owned bank, and all their assets are put into their own state-owned bank rather
mm,
than overseas bank. I think we are the only country where we have got our assets put into overseas bank, which is either
yeah,
Westpac or ANZ.
yeah, yeah,
So just a thought for you to
yeah,
take
yeah.
it
I'll
further.
certainly remember that one. It has come to the forefront. I mean, like I said, in
Mm,
working with Maori, that was a very crucial point for them,
right, right.
very important to them. Yeah,
Mm, okay. No, that's good. Thank you so much. That was great, good insights for the business community and for the small entrepreneurs, and lots of transformation changes you suggested should really would be good in terms of how do we do business and how do we help businesses. And small businesses are the backbone of our country, and it's not
mm,
going to go away for another few more years or many years
mm,
to come. Um,
yeah,
And we should not be really comparing ourselves in terms of business with other commercial countries or big
yeah,
countries because their dynamics are different to what our dynamics are.
mm, mm,
And it's unfortunate that we have been comparing that and putting policies which is not working here,
mm,
if you
mm.
really look at it from that angle. So, with that note, I think great insights once again, Susanna. Now, let's come back to that other topic, which is the aged care.
Mm,
With the pandemic, what we saw is everybody and the messages from the World Health Organization and everyone, we thought that everybody was trying to more focus on the aged care population and to support and help
mm,
them. but that should have been a normal case in any given point of time and not just pandemic, really, from my point of view. That support should have been throughout and should always be there throughout. But in your view, now that we have identified that this pandemic was related more towards aged care, but anyway, our statistics doesn't show that much, but still it is a fear that we have with this pandemic. But that could happen with any pandemic, or that could happen with any virus or any kind of thing in the future. How do we future proof this? How do we make sure that these aged care are not looked when the pandemic happens, but as a regular, there should be some control points, there should be some recreational points for them, there should be engagement of them with the other community, with the existing community. Do you think there is a lot of gap in that area that needs to be filled when it comes to aged care?
Oh, that's now the area that I'm not so sure
That's
what the
okay.
answer is,
But what you have
uh,
seen and what you have here and what you think about New Zealand, we got some great rest home facilities. That's no doubt about
mm,
that.
mm,
But then we also have lots of issues when it comes to looking after them. Or now
mm,
that we don't have migrants coming and looking after them, it has to
mm,
be local people looking after them. And
yeah,
then when you look at that point of view, everybody goes into that phase one day or the other. But in terms of like, they are not getting any recreational or any
mm,
mental health benefits. So their mental health is getting more worse. That's what we came to know, because there is not
yeah,
much happening in that area. There's not
mm,
much support in the outer. There is a support for healthcare and all that, but recreation is also a big part of the humans, isn't it? And particularly
yeah,
when they need so engagement of other people around them, like even
mm,
communicating with them. Like we saw during the pandemic, people were asking to at least be in touch with your loved ones and talk to them on a
yeah,
regular basis. Now that should
mm,
have been a normal case on a regular basis because their mental health was getting deteriorated more during the
mm,
COVID-19 and after
mm,
that as well.
mm.
So do you think like there has to be some sort of policies around that?
You know, for me, I want to actually bring it a step back. And because, yeah, in a way, I do believe that New Zealand actually has a lot of services that is
Yeah.
available for
Mm,
elderly and so on, because I'm just looking at, you know, family members and what they are able to get through respite care and personal services and uh, yeah, things like hip replacement
mm.
operations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think where I have a problem with, and you touched on it, is the thing of family care towards
yeah.
the
Family
elderly.
care. Mm,
Because there is this notion, because we live in a country that is, firstly, like I said, very feminist,
mm,
but
mm,
then we also live in a country where there's a huge emphasis on youth and being young,
mm, mm.
which is fantastic because the youth is the future.
It's the
But
future.
I'm
Yeah.
just afraid that there's a little bit of a notion that the moment you turn 50, you are useless.
Mm, mm,
You
mm.
know, it's not only that you can't find a job or that sort of thing, but I, everywhere I kind of go, because obviously I fall in that category of after 50. So, and I just get the idea, because the youth are so good with environment and
Yeah.
digital stuff and all of that. But
Yes. Yes.
sometimes I feel like, and of course now everybody, even the over 50s,
Mm,
are encouraging them and helping them and supporting them to
mm.
create this better world than we've done, for
Yeah.
instance, you
Yeah.
know. But I think there is a lack of the understanding that the over 50s can actually still contribute a lot.
Absolutely, I
for
agree
a
with
very long
100%.
time of your life, you know?
Mm, mm, mm,
And it's in that contribution
mm.
that you maintain mental health
Yeah,
and physical health
yeah,
and all of those.
yes,
And
yes, yes.
so what I'm advocating for, as I'm sometimes advocating and saying, look, don't forget the traditional family, I
Mm,
also advocate to say, don't forget that intergenerational situations are very important.
mm,
Don't make youth everything and the elderly less
mm.
important.
Correct, I agree.
The, the elderly has to form an important part of the youth's development
Mm.
in creating the future they want.
Yeah, because I think the elderly, they need the grandson, granddaughters, grandchildren to be walked out, to be, taken to be outdoor as well, and not just sitting in one room and doing nothing. And that's also
Yeah,
creates more issues because their desires, their dreams during that time are more about those younger kids, which when they were.
yeah,
Just like the kids are looked after by taking them to the park or having an outdoor activity. I mean, elderly needs also that kind of activities
yeah,
when
yeah,
they are at that stage. They don't need to be just isolated and put it into one box, that kind of thing.
yeah,
I feel that that's what the services are good, the health system is good, and everything is there. But it's the mental well being, it's the emotional
yeah,
well being is
yeah,
not really been looked after as effectively as the
yeah,
services should be.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just from
yeah.
that angle, I was thinking like, okay, what will be your views? But that's good to know at least that you are aligned with that kind of concept where they need to really be looked after with the care of the emotional
Yeah,
care, mental care needs to be there.
yeah,
Cool.
they need to be, yeah, it's got to be intergenerational
That's
situations
right.
will
Yeah,
cater for
intergener.
that. If we can create more intergenerational situations, then that will take care of that to a large extent.
Sure, sure. Yes, yes. No, that's a good point. Yeah. Just like when they look at the younger generation and this generation and the coming generation, they have to look at the intergenerational for the elderly,
Yeah.
for the aged care. Well
Mm.
said. Good. Thank you. Thanks. That was great. Now we come to the last topic, which is our health topic, which is essentials, which is what you touched. But then, like the essentials, under essentials, I have got two aspects. One is the farmers, which I was more worried about. Like with the pandemic, it has affected the health of people, humans. But what would something, a disease or something pandemic kind of nature comes and hits our farmers? And we know that the farmers are quite scattered and all. But the dialogue needs to start talking now. If something goes wrong with our farming industry, if something goes wrong with very disastrously for the farmers or for the farming industry, then what is our future proofing in terms of what do we do or how do we control that? What sort of policies or platforms we should be putting now or thinking now with this pandemic that anything could happen, anything can happen in the future.
Mm.
So
Mm.
what would be your few visions that you would see for farmers to give them a support, to give them help, or to give them now we put something in place. So
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
prepared and we are ready for it.
Mm. Yeah, look, of course, the farming industry is extremely important because we
Mm,
have to produce our own vegetables and meat and everything.
mm.
So, yeah, I've seen that coming from Africa. I've seen that
Correct, correct. Yeah.
when agriculture and that is going down, then the economy is going down.
Mm,
So, because that is kind of like the heart of the
mm.
economy
Yeah,
to a
yeah,
large extent.
yeah, yeah.
So, I think what we need to do, yeah, health-wise, if there's diseases coming like COVID-19, you know, for animals and
Yeah.
in the farming industry,
Mm.
I'm not sure what we would do. Maybe we should start developing a vaccine. But I'm thinking more along the lines as well of more free trade agreements and things with our neighboring
That's right.
islands, you know,
Yeah,
Pacific
that's right.
Islands,
Yeah, I was
because they
about
are
to.
closest. Yeah,
We got to have some sort of platform in place, future proofing, so that if any worst come to worst scenario, if they can't produce, then the supplies
yeah,
cannot be stopped. Just like
yeah,
during the pandemic, COVID, we didn't stop the inflow, imports of essential goods. We didn't stop
yeah,
it, right? It was there, the flow was there. But we, on top of that, we didn't had any problem with farmers. That's why the flow was very good, and
yeah.
we could be we never had a scarcity of providing food, which is the basic requirement of a human.
Mm,
And so we looked after that area very well. But if suppose something goes wrong in that with our farmers, then we should have some mechanism in place for nearby countries or Pacific or
yeah,
any other countries, that the food can be made available, the basic
yeah,
things can be made
yeah,
available. And this is where I
yeah,
was more kind of concerned and worried when these things. I mean, yeah, we never wish for COVID-19. We never wish for such pandemics. Nobody wishes for such things. But since it happened, it has uncovered a lot of things. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
about fear, and I don't believe in fear. We don't want to live in fear. It's not about fear. It's about how
Mm,
do we become more resilient and more
mm.
put certain things in place in advance, so that
Yeah, absolutely.
we are a nation fully equipped.
Yeah,
Just like when
yeah.
you fully equipped for the war with weapons and
Mm,
all, we should be fully equipped with our food
yeah.
supplies.
Yeah,
And
it's
that,
not about fear. It's really just about, as a result of COVID-19, it's just made us stop a little bit, you know, and just rethink a lot of the things. Like, for instance, globalization. You know,
correct, correct.
before that, what could you say, even if you didn't like it, what could you say against it? Because it seemed to
Absolutely,
have worked well. But
absolutely.
now, as a result of COVID-19, we suddenly have a reason to say,
Mm.
wow, it's after all, you know,
Yeah,
not so fantastic, you know. You
yes.
have to have balance.
Mm, mm,
Um, so yes,
mm.
that is the big thing. Yeah, it's not about fear.
So one more thing about the other than the farmers essential, which is the health, you did touch with the health, with the human rights, which was quite good. But now in terms of future proofing the health, like we do have mask and all that for this particular issue. But what about like manufacturing those health equipments or manufacturing those health related
Yeah.
things in New Zealand? We should be investing more here with our own
Mm.
people and asking them to manufacture the medical side of it, or the equipment or any tools or
Mm.
accessories related to health. We should be manufacturing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what would have happened if we really needed to set up a lot of, you
Mm.
know, outdoor hospitals
Outdoor
and that sort
hospitals,
of
yeah.
thing, you know?
Mm, mm.
So yeah, we needed to have, I mean, we couldn't even get masks.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know. The start. That's so true. I agree. That's so true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And the gear that the nurses use and that sort of thing, yeah.
mm,
So
mm.
yes, that's the thing. But another thing that that we've briefly touched on in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
is the natural health.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
really think, as a result of COVID-19, as I think people need to, and the government need to seriously uh, think about initiatives of getting nutrient-dense food for people to eat nutrient-dense food, you know, so that
mm,
you have that
mm-hmm.
natural health.
Mm.
Because food is medicine,
Right. Absolutely. Agreed.
you know,
100%.
and it has to begin with that. We can't just subsidize like the governments, subsidize all the drugs that you can get, when you go to
Mm,
the doctor, all the
mm,
medicine and so on.
mm-hmm,
I mean, you can walk out of the pharmacy with a bag full of medicine for next to nothing,
mm,
you
yeah,
know. But when it comes to food, you have to live on a $5 pizza,
true.
you know.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And so
And
that is something that I'm very passionate about,
mm,
because it's not only about encouraging people to eat, to make better choices. It is about the price of food.
mm, yeah. So with the business, just since you brought up this pizza, when you bought the pizza, then I thought I was inclined to ask you this question. In terms of business, your policy or your vision for buy local, be local, and
Yeah.
support local. And so we can produce our pizza rather than Pizza Hut or rather than,
Absolutely.
What do you think
Absolutely.
about that? We can advocate about that so we can create more businesses and more business
Yeah.
people around that. Even if
Yeah.
in food industry, if we create more businesses, I mean,
Mm,
everybody likes food, everybody can
yeah.
spend on food, and everybody has got a specialty to make food. So would you be advocating for those kind of businesses, for food business?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we always say, especially like around Christmas time, there's
Yeah.
always this thing, these postings on Facebook and so on
Yeah.
that say, oh, buy your Christmas gifts rather from a small business or a local person than
Mm.
from a big retail store.
Yeah.
Because when you buy from that small business owner, you're putting food on the table
Mm,
of them.
mm,
While
yeah.
if you buy from the retail store,
Mm,
you're paying for their next overseas vacation.
mm.
That sort of thing. So
I
yes,
know.
I'm very for the local and the small business
Mm,
entrepreneurial support.
mm.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. No, that's a good note. So we can all start buying food and we can all start making business in the food industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
manufacturing food of various kinds. And we've got multicultural anyway, so we can create lots of food.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different types that you can pick
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
So yeah, we don't need the the big ones, the Domino's and the McDonald's. We
Mhm.
actually don't need them.
Exactly. We don't need them. It's burger. We can create our own burger, local
Yeah,
burgers.
yeah,
Different kinds, different
absolutely.
names of local burgers,
Yeah,
different names of
yeah.
pizza. That tempted
Yeah.
me when you said pizza, which was great.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Susanna. This was great insight. And as I always said, like this interview or this conversation was all about how we can help and support and future proof the businesses, but also
Mm.
future proof of various topics that are relevant to our humans,
Yeah.
our people.
Mm.
And you touched on some great insights about trying to give us some your visions, but also very valid points, some of those where our system needs to be looked at, our transformation
Mm.
needs to be changed, whether it is child poverty, whether it is health, whether it is human rights. It's important that these are, and businesses particularly. And
Mm.
yes, I love that idea of forming a committee to actually look into the lease and how we can negotiate and mitigate between us. And this has to be done now, then
Mm.
later,
Yeah. Yeah,
not
it
like
has to
that later.
happen now. Yeah.
This is needed now. So, and particularly when the Christmas time comes. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's good. Thank you so much. This is a great positive approach of our channel that we wanted to give to our viewers with how we can positive be, how our people are positive here, and people like you who is not just knowing the ins and out, but also a good advocator of clu- lots of beautiful things, businesses, and then how to grow them.
But being in the politics of your and running for various things, positions, and now that you are a co-leader of a party, which I wish you that definitely it will bring some transformative changes that we need. And we look forward to seeing you more and having more conversations with you, as always, with a positive view and a positive approach. So once again, thank you, Susanna, for your time with us today. And we look forward to have more and more conversations of this nature in the future. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure, Susanna. So yeah, so if you want, you can say something about NZ World News, and then you can.
Yeah, I just want to say that, yes, I'm the co-leader of the Tea Party, Taxpayers
Mm,
and Entrepreneurs Alliance, and we are not career politicians. We are really all business people and entrepreneurs. So
right.
we really have that practical knowledge of how
Mm,
we can make New Zealand a better place for
mm,
all. And so, yeah, that's what's important. So, and it's not only about the views that I've now shared today, but it is about
yeah,
everybody having a place at the table, and we
mm,
decide together and make it better because everybody's got
absolutely.
input. And migrants, we can contribute a lot to this country, and we do.
Mm, mm,
So yeah, thank you very much to New Zealand World News
mm,
and to the very positive conversation that we could have had. And it's always good to
mm.
think about the future and how we can make it better.
Yeah, and you very well said in the last point, you made a very good point that you are one of those political, not just political party, but all I'm putting your point across, but actually everybody has got a platform to put their point and how
Mhm.
we can come together and make it much better, this nation. So
Yeah,
very well said. I really appreciate that. It was a
thank you.
great conversation, Susanna, and it's always a pleasure to meet you and to get some insights. So I'm looking forward for more and more Q&A and this kind of sessions with you. We will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again.